We are in Parashat Tazria, that this year we're going to read it together with Parashat Metzora. And this is one of the parashot that raises a very common question, specifically in Judaism, that as Jews as a whole, we like asking questions. You ask a Jew a question, he will answer you with a question. But there is one big question in Judaism that bothers many people, and in this week's parasha, it's addressing it. And this question is about all the laws of purity and impurity. So when you're looking at laws such as basic things, not to steal, not to kill, and so forth, you understand it. Now you come and tell me all these rules about purity and impurity. Why? Doesn't even make sense. A woman gives birth and she becomes impure? What did she do? And the parasha starts with the fact that a woman gives birth. If she gives birth to a boy, she's going to be impure for 40 days. If she gives birth to a girl, she's going to be impure for 80 days. Well, what's the difference between the boy and the girl? What makes her more impure or impure longer because of the girl? Why does she get impure? Because she gave birth? So the whole idea of purity and impurity in Judaism is very not clear. And this is something that bothers a lot of people, because many people, for example, ladies that are not observant, you'll tell them they need to go to the mikveh after their cycle. Mikveh? Need to go to a bath of water? I'll take a shower. Besides, the bleeding stopped 2 weeks ago. Now I have to go clean myself. And a bath of water will clean me, and why now I'm impure? My husband can't touch me. So this is one impurity out of many, but these are things that are more common to us. We don't have leprosy in our generation. We actually do, it's just not on our skin. The leprosy in our generation is on our soul. But nevertheless, the whole idea of purity and impurity is a very big enigma in Judaism. Now it's much less. When we had the Beit HaMikdash, it was a very big deal, because anyone who wasn't pure couldn't come to Beit HaMikdash and couldn't bring sacrifices and couldn't eat from the sacrifices, and it was a big deal. You know what it is when you have a Beit HaMikdash and you can't go to Beit HaMikdash, that the purity police stops you. Hello, you can't come in. What do you mean come in? I want to come and sacrifice, give an offering, pray. No, you're not pure. So at the time of the Beit HaMikdash, and also at the time when they had the Mishkan, so it's coming from the Mishkan, from the tabernacle in the desert, all the way into Eretz Yisrael, into the Beit HaMikdash. You're talking about a significantly very long period to our nation. And one Beit HaMikdash was 420 years. The first Beit HaMikdash was 410 years. Second Beit HaMikdash was 420 years. It stood. The Mishkan, the desert, you're talking here over 1,000 years of time that our nation had a holy temple. So at that time was more significant that people would constantly check their purity and impurity. And Bechlal, we're going to talk about today, first of all, what is this impurity, and what is it going to do with me? Why the Torah is so emphasizing this purity and impurity. Now, like I said, in the olden days, they were very particular about checking themselves constantly. Now we don't do that. Now, first of all, we have the main impurity. It's called Tum'at Met, impurity of death. That everybody in the world are impure with that impurity. A baby just is born and the doctor holds the baby and right away he gives him the impurity. So we're all impure with impurity of death. That's why we have such a big Yetzer Hara. But at the time of the Holy Temple, they had a red heifer. They were able to burn the red heifer to ashes, take the ashes, mix it with water, and sprinkle it. This is called the water that removes the purity of the impurity of death. But now we don't have that. So we all are constantly impure. So we don't really constantly check ourselves. But nevertheless, this impurity is weird in the way that how it's transferred from one person to another. It can be transferred from one person, like by me touching a person who's impure, touching another person impure, make them impure, and it depends on the impurity. And the whole thing basically is a very weird concept, but if the Torah is already talking about purity and impurity, must be that there's some type of a connection to me and in my generation, because if not, the Torah will not go so much out of its way to teach me about it. Now, like I said, in the olden days, they were very cautious about this purity and impurity, because it will determine if they can come to Beit HaMikdash or not. And now, it's not nobody really puts their thought into it, but this is it's not a good thing, because if I will constantly pay attention to my level of purity and impurity, it will change my approach to life. The fact that we don't have a Beit HaMikdash now, and I might not see the purity on me, or can't go to a priest and do different rituals to get rid of the impurity, doesn't mean that I'm not impure. So we're going to first try to cover the idea of the purity and impurity, and then see how it's relating to our life and in our generation, and how we can apply it and apply a change in our life. Now, first and most, somebody left the phone there.
Is it back there?
But nevertheless, first of all comes the big question, is what is the reason behind the whole purity and impurity? If the Torah is coming and explaining to me something, has to be some reason here. Even though most sages and teachers and rabbis in the past, nobody ever got a good answer about the purity and impurity. And when I'm saying sages and rabbis, I'm talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon. Nobody really figured out the whole thing with purity and impurity. But nevertheless, there has to be some type of common sense behind it, some type of a reason behind it. And what we want to know is what causes the person to become impure. And especially that the person didn't sin. Now, if you tell me the person sinned and he's getting a punishment, I can say, okay, that makes sense. That I'll accept. But a person didn't do nothing, and then they do a certain action and they become impure, has to be some type of common sense here. Why would the person get punished for the fact that they didn't do anything and something natural happened to them and they get impure? Why does it bother the Torah? Why the Torah is so bothered by it? Now, first we have to understand that there are 8 situations that can make a person impure. 5 of them we read in this parasha, in Tazria, and another 3 we read in different places. 2 of them we actually read in the parasha of last week of Shmini. But there are 8 situations when a person will become impure. The first one that we read in this parasha is that a woman gives birth. Woman gives birth. If it's a boy, she's impure for 40 days. If it's a girl, she's impure for 80 days. And again, what did she do? She gave birth. She needs to get a prize, not to get a punishment. So instead of getting a reward for carrying the baby for 9 months, she's getting a punishment. Now she's impure. The second thing is a person who's metzora, leprosy. This is the only one out of the 8 that makes sense. A person talked lashon hara, got leprosy. Okay, that I'll take. That I'm willing to say makes sense. So the second one, person slanders, talks lashon hara. In the olden days, right away, will be leprosy. You can imagine how embarrassing it is. But nevertheless, this is the only one that makes sense. That okay, I see that you can understand a person did something wrong and he got punished. The third one, again, was also in our parasha. This is called Zav. Zav is a disease that it can be a woman or a man, that from the organ comes out a certain, how do you call it, pus or something like that. That's, I think, how it's called. A discharge, but not...
Is it Z-A-V? Zav?
No, Zav is in Hebrew.
Oh.
The word in English, I'm not too sure how it's called in English. Discharge. But nevertheless, from the female or the male organ comes a certain discharge, but not any discharge, a certain discharge. It's called Zav, and it makes the person impure. And again, comes the same question. What did the person do? Well, you're going to punish me because I caught a cold. So I got some type of a disease, and this pus came out, and now I'm impure. This is called Zav. The fourth one, also in our parasha, a man that has semen on him. Now again, what do you want from the man? He did the mitzvah from the Torah. He came to his wife to do pruvu, to procreate. Now he gets impure. Now he is also impure because he has some semen on him. Another one. The fifth one is a woman's cycle, nida. Another one. Well, what did she do? She didn't ask for that. I can guarantee to you, if we make a vote, all women will say, I'm in favor to get rid of this headache. So nobody asked for that. So what did she do? Now she became impure because she has to suffer from the cycle. These are the 5 situations that we read in this parasha when somebody gets impure. The other two are in the parasha we read last week, Parashat Shmini. One of them is when you touch a dead animal, and the other one is when you touch one of the 8 shratzim, one of the 8 animals that they roam on the ground, like a mouse and a rat, and the one that has a lot of legs. I don't know. It's called how? Not a caterpillar. Centipede. Whatever, the animal that has a lot of legs. But nevertheless, there are 8 animals. We read that last week. It's not animals. It's not really reptiles. You call it like insects. Not really an insect because a mouse is one of them, and a mouse is not an insect. But nevertheless, there are 4 little creatures that they're called shratzim because they run on the land. And if you touch them, you become impure. If you hold a mouse, then it brings you a certain impurity. And of course, like I said, an animal that is a dead animal. And the 8th, which is the most severest of all, is tumat met, touching a dead body of a human being. This is the most severe. This is what's called av avot tuma, the father of all impurities. Now, when you're looking at all of them, besides the one that when a person slanders and he gets tzarat, all the rest don't make sense. The person didn't do anything, and they went through a situation, and now they're being punished by being impure. Now, in our generation, the only ones that really we can relate with is when a woman has her cycle or gives birth, or a man that has semen on him. So okay, so go to the mikveh. But still, so if you starch a dead animal and so forth, you still get this impurity. The disease of Zav, I don't think they really have it anymore. I think it's one of these diseases that stopped happening anymore, and I don't think they really have it. It's not the regular discharge that comes to many people. Now, comes a big question: what's the connection? They have to have a connection. If the Torah is mentioning these 8 types of situations that you become impure, must have some type of a common denominator. The Torah is not going to just throw 8 things. So when you're looking deep into it, what's the connection between a woman giving birth and somebody who dies? 2 types of impurity. Here you're talking about life, and here you're talking about death.
There's a potential for life, because a woman could have given birth.
That's very correct, because there's a potential. But Techav will explain a little bit more why the woman who gives birth gets impure. This is one very right way of looking at it, because there was a potential, but that's more connected when she has her cycle. There was a potential for life. But when the woman gave birth, she gave already life. Now comes another question. Why would a boy 40 days and a girl 80 days? I mean, if the Torah says something, there is a reason. Now, not only that, anything that the Torah is explaining to us, the Torah is trying to teach me something. The Torah is not trying to hide something from me. The Torah Bechlal, the word Torah in Hebrew, I know in English it's translated as Bible, but in Hebrew the word Torah comes from the word Hora'ah, to teach. It's a book that teaches me. So some people look at the Torah as a religious teaching. No, the Torah has nothing to do with religion. The word religion was made by man. 2,000 years ago it was invented. 3,400 years ago when the Torah was given, there wasn't such a word religion. There isn't the word religion in the Torah. All the nations were in Mount Sinai. Everybody received the Torah, and everybody has to believe in one God and observe the Torah in their way. Even non-Jews have to observe the Torah to a certain extent. They have 7 mitzvot. And these 7 mitzvot are actually 7 titles of 70 mitzvot. But at the time of the giving of the Torah, this is something that is known. Everybody was there. The nations were also at Matan Torah. Happened to be that the Jewish nations were in the front rows and the non-Jews, they're in the back. They also got the Torah. And if you remember, right after we got the Torah, it says in the Torah, from Hashem giving a commandment to the Jews, you should be a light to the nations. Take this Torah and give it over to the nations. The fact that we didn't do it for the last 3,000 years, that's a mistake. But nevertheless, we are supposed to light up the world with the light of the Torah. But the nations are also obligated in the Torah. Nevertheless, the word religion was invented that after so many years that the Jewish nation was holding the Torah and so to say weren't ready to share it or to teach it, then different nations said, okay, you don't want to give us your Torah, we'll make our own. We'll invent one. And from that, there came a spiritual evolution that people started inventing religions. When Mashiach is going to come very soon, you think it's going to be a religion? It's going to be one language, it's called. Because everybody will believe in one God and follow the same book. And this book is to teach us how to live our life. So nevertheless, what is this Torah trying to teach me? If the Torah is teaching me about all this impurity, must be that there's a message there. Now comes even a bigger question. We're talking now about the fact of being impure. Now we add on it another component, is how do I become pure? And now comes even a bigger question. You know what makes the person pure? A mikveh, a bath of water. From all things, me going into a bath of water will make me now pure. Even a bigger enigma. Why would a bath of water? Water, why water? So, Rambam concludes this big question by saying, this is Gzerat HaKatuv. This is beyond our understanding. The Hashem said, and we can't understand and we will never understand. As we explained many times, there are three types of mitzvot. They are divided into three categories. One of them is called mishpatim. Mishpatim are laws, all the mitzvot that make sense. Don't kill, don't steal, don't commit adultery. This you don't need the Torah to understand that, it's common sense. The second category is called testimony, edut. These are all the mitzvot that we do as a testimony for something that happened in the past. We just celebrated Pesach. That's a testimony for leaving Mitzrayim. Every Shabbat we celebrate the Shabbat. That's a testimony for the world, that the world was created. And we do Purim and Chanukah and many other mitzvot that are a testimony. Like Sukkot and so forth. And then there's the third group that is called Chukim. Chukim is laws that don't make sense. Is that beyond our comprehension. And that's like mikveh and red heifer and wool and linen, not to mix wool and linen, and many other things that really don't make sense. Kosher, why can I eat this animal? I can't eat that animal. This is called chukim. So Rambam says, don't try to break your brain too much. This is what's called Gzerat HaKatuv. Gzerah is a decree of what the Torah says. You'll never understand it. End of story. Move on.
Can't we understand Kedusha, the notion of Kedusha?
First of all, really deep down in essence, we can't understand what Kedusha means. But Rambam is referring to Tum'ah and Tahara, and why mikveh will make you pure. Rambam says, don't bother. This is beyond our comprehension. Why a certain bath of water, and I have a bath of water out there, with the pool, where the fish are. How come that can't be a kosher mikveh? Because what? Because there's fish in there? No, it has to have a certain way, it has to be captured a certain way, the water can touch the ground, has to have a certain measurement, and etc., etc. So, to talk...
Rambam is saying that we cannot understand the concept of Kedusha.
No, from Tum'ah and Tahara. The Rambam says we cannot understand the idea the idea why a mikveh will make you pure. This is Gzerat HaKatuv.
It's not Kedusha, it's Tahara.
Either way you're asking it, that's what he says. And nobody ever figured that out yet. Why a mikveh makes you pure? You can come with all sorts of Kabbalistic explanations, but really, and first of all, that's his opinion. Doesn't mean that everybody goes by the opinion of Rambam. I'm just stating an opinion of different commentaries that Rambam says this is Gzerat HaKatuv. Gzerah is a decree, Katuv is the script, which means that we won't be able to really understand why a mikveh that has 39 se'ah, this is the measurement, like a liter or gallon, If he has 39.9, the mikveh is not kosher. Why? Why? I'm missing here 2 drops of water. 2 drops of water will make the mikveh not kosher? That's where Rambam says, don't try to understand it. But nevertheless, we're talking here about purity and impurity. So, first of all, the impurity doesn't make sense. We just went through it. A woman gives birth. Why is she impure? Can you give me a common explanation, a good explanation? How come when I touch a mouse I become impure, and when I touch a dog I don't come impure? It's 2 animals. They're both hairy and cute. So the impurity, well, that's opinions of people. But the impurity is clear, and also the way you become pure is not understandable and clear. Nevertheless, there is a hint behind these 2 that helps us. But we have to ask another question before we continue. When a woman gives birth, she has to do a very extreme act that even more doesn't make sense. She has to bring a sacrifice. And a specific sacrifice is called korban chatat. A sacrifice when you sin. So she what?
Nowadays?
No, nowadays we don't do that. I'm talking about when there's a Beit HaMikdash. But first she carries the baby for 9 months. She deserves a medal. Then she has to go through labor. She deserves 3 medals. Then she becomes impure. Excuse me, lady, excuse me. You can't be with your husband now, and you have to be impure, and you can't come to Beit HaMikdash. Now comes even a bigger punishment. Now bring a korban chatat. What did I do? Korban chatat is a sacrifice for when I sin. Now you're asking me to go take money out of my pocket to buy an animal and to come and sacrifice it in Beit HaMikdash? Why? Why? Doesn't make sense. Anyways, there is an explanation specifically for this part. It's brought in the Talmud in the tractate called Nida, which is the impurity of a woman after her cycle. And it says there, the reason why she has to bring korban chatat, because when a woman is in labor, she curses. She says, I'm never going to be with my husband ever again. I don't want kids anymore. To hell with this, and I'm doing it. And for that, she has to bring a korban, for swearing that she never wants to have more babies. I only have one wife, Baruch Hashem, a very special one, and every time where she has a baby, right after the baby, she says, that's the last one. Please don't, I don't want to have more babies. 3 months later, when the baby the face kind of stretches out and looks like a mensch, oh, I want another one. Didn't you say 3 months ago that you don't want any more? So the Talmud says, just because of the fact that while she's giving birth, she swears she doesn't want to have another child, that for that she has to bring a korban. Because she did a sin, she sweared and she cursed and so forth. But this is just one opinion, one explanation in the Talmud. But we want to get to the bottom of it. We're not looking to walk around in circles. What is so different or powerful or bad in this power of impurity that is called tum'ah? Impurity is called tum'ah. Purity is called tahara. What's in this tum'ah, this impurity that I'm so afraid of, that I have to be so careful from, that I have to be aware what's going on? Obviously, there's some type of a problem there. Obviously, there's some type of a warning. Now, when the Torah comes to teach me something, it's not coming to punish me, it's coming to teach me, educate me, and in many cases, the Torah will come to warn me. Here, there's a certain warning. Now, before we continue, we want to know, we presented a question, we just want to get some type of an answer. We said, how come a woman that gives birth, with a boy, she's impure for 40 days, and with a girl, she's impure for 80 days? What's the difference? Now, first of all, when a woman gives birth, she suffers, so to say, or she loses her level of where she was just holding. Can you understand what a level a woman is holding while she's giving birth? She's in a very high level. Very high level, because she's, I shouldn't even say that, but a mini goddess. She's bringing life to the world. She's at that point in such a high madriga because she is carrying life in her. Just imagine the miracle. And then she gives a birth to life. It's a very, very high level. A moment later, she lost her madriga. She lost her level. She went down. So she lost the level, so to say, of her kedusha, of her holiness. Because a minute before that, she was able to bring life and kids into the world. A minute later, after she brought the child to the world, she went down to being like every other woman. So just by that, she lost a portion of her kedusha, of her life, so to say. That's first of all. But if this is the case, so why it's double with a girl? Now, there's a few opinions. One opinion says that because the girl will be potential to bring more life, so it's double. A boy doesn't have the potential of bringing the life. So there's a reason why the boy is 40 days specifically. And we see that this number 40 comes constantly, like we said, the mikveh has to have a measurement of 40 se'ah. But the reason why a girl is double, because now the girl has the potential, the baby girl has the potential to bring life, so it's double power than the boy. So that's why the impurity goes twice. But nevertheless, there's an interesting story that I heard that kind of sheds a little bit of light why specifically the girls are double. And there's not really a source, I just heard it from a very great rabbi. And he said that in a story, during World War I, there was a big city called Lita, and there was a very big Gvir there, a very rich man there. His name was Diners, something like that. Danis. That was his name. We're talking about 100 years ago, a little bit less, in World War I. And he was the Gvir of the city. Very big city called Lita. Nevertheless, everybody would feed everybody, all the yeshivot, all the great yeshivot of Lita. He was the one who supported them. And he was very, very generous, of course. And then, of course, came the war. The governments were all under stress, and for whatever reason, they, which I don't know exactly, but they took all his money. One shot, he became a nobody, a poor person, a beggar, had to be living off the other people's help and so forth. But nevertheless, he kept his dignity. He says, "Listen, don't treat me like a beggar. Everything is fine. I'm totally fine. It's okay." We're talking about just so we have an understanding. It's almost like it's not a person that now is living comfortable. We're talking about a person in the level of a billionaire in our generation, like a Bill Gates. You know, there is a very rich Jew, also known to be very, very generous, Leb Levayov. You know, these pamphlets you have, he pays for that. If you turn it up, if you turn it around now, you'll see the name Levayov.
Yeah.
So, very, very wealthy. Excuse me? Yeah. And he supports dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of yeshivot, and very, very rich man. And at some point he also had a little bit of a fall. But nevertheless, imagine a man like this suddenly loses everything. This is a man, I don't know what he's worth, $2, $3, $4 billion. I don't even know what he's holding by. But nevertheless, you see, very charitable, very, very kind, supports Torah, people, unbelievable level of charity. But imagine, that's the type of person, this Danis, suddenly falls. But nevertheless, he says, "Listen, don't have pity on me, don't have mercy on me. I have already received my Gan Eden. I'm fine." And when they asked him, "What is this Gan Eden that you have received?" he says, "I have two very unique son-in-laws." He only had 2 daughters, and they both married 2 big head of yeshivot, very big in the world of the Lita. He says, "I have my Gan Eden, my 2 son-in-laws. That these are head of yeshivot, and I have my girls, and that's it." So, and for him, that was enough. Came, of course, the question: how did he merit to have these 2 girls marry off to these 2 great heads of yeshivot? So there is a story that there was a certain rabbi who had a few yeshivot, and every time that the yeshiva ran out of money, he would go to the gvir, to the rich person, to Danis, and right away get a check. So he says, the story says at one time was a harsh winter, a lot of snow, and you know how it is with snow, at least now they shovel the snow. 100 years ago, who shovels the snow? So he really was under stress, he needed money, went of course to the rich man, and as he's going there, getting all wet from the snow, and the snow, hits the ground, becomes mud and disgusting, and by the time he got to the mansion, he was all wet and dirty. He didn't want to come in the front door. He felt very bad. Well, I'm going to come now and make the whole house dirty with my mud and me being wet. So he went to the back door. He went to the back door and he knocked on the back door, the back door's door. Okay, the two daughters were little girls at the time, and they went and they opened the door. And they screamed, "Daddy, Daddy, the rabbi's here, the rabbi's here." The daddy comes down, Danis comes down, and he tells the rabbi, why are you ruining my education to my kids? The rabbi's like, what? He's like, why are you making my education to my little daughters? Why are you ruining it for me? The rabbi's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry, what did I do? He tells him, listen, why do you have to come from the back door? He tells him, because I'm all dirty, I don't want to make the house wet. He's like, please, Rabbi, please, I'm really asking you. Close the door, go around, come through the front door. And he's like, but I'm going to get your whole house dirty. He's like, you don't understand. I'm trying to teach my daughters that the Torah is the most important thing. If you coming from the back door, my daughters will think that my carpet is more important than the Torah. That my nice sofa is more important than the Torah. That I have to accept you from the back door. I want you to come through the front door. I want to accept you in front of my daughters, that they should see that the Torah is the highlight. That right away I write you a check because you're going to teach Torah. I don't care about my carpet. I'll buy a new carpet. I'll buy a new couch. You're ruining the education of my girls. Please, Rabbi, I'm asking you, go out, come around, come through the front door, make my house dirty. And needless to say, that he did that, got the house very, very dirty. And the story was that the Torah is much more important than a carpet. And the Torah is much more important than a sofa. And needless to say, when these girls grew up, they knew what to look for. They didn't look for somebody who has money, they looked for somebody who has Torah. So, Bechlal, you want to teach, you want to educate your kids, you want to show them what to do, not tell them what to do. When I became a father to my second son, third child, second son, so we had the Friday before the Brit, there's a big party, it's called the Shalom Zachar. So we had a big party, everybody came, and it was very special. And a very big rabbi of the community where we lived at the time also came. It was a big honor, and of course the whole night everybody's giving blessings. Your son should be a Talmid Chacham, your son should be this, pa. Okay, and there was a lot of people, and finally I was waiting to see if I can get maybe a blessing from the rabbi. And at some point he got up and he says, listen, everybody already gave you brachot, I don't need to give you another one. And I was like, no, it's okay, you can. So he says, I'm not going to give you a blessing, I'm going to give you advice. Whatever you want your son to be, you be. You want your son to be learned, you want your son to be alamdan, very into learning Torah, then you learn Torah. You want your son to show up to the minyan, you show up to the minyan. You want your son to be charitable and accepting guests into the home, you open the door to guests, you give charity to people. Don't talk is cheap. You show an example, your son would look what you're doing, and he will do that himself. And at the time I was like, that's the best advice, the best blessing I can say. It's not advice. Because I can't come and demand something from my child when I'm not doing it. There's a famous story that there was a big rabbi and a rich man that were friends. And, after a while, the sons of the rabbi became businessmen, and the sons of the rich man became rabbis. And later on, the rabbi approached the businessman and says, why? I wanted my sons to go in my path, to become educators in Torah. How come your kids, not that I have any problem, but what did you do? So the rich man told him, listen, What was your daily routine? You woke up in the morning, you went to the mikveh, you went to your shul, you prayed early in the morning, and all day long you learned Torah. Now, when you came home at 6, 7 in the evening, that was after 12 hours of learning Torah. So what did you do when you came home? You checked your messages, you read the newspaper, you talked to somebody on the phone. So I was the other way around. I would wake up in the morning, what would I do? Go quickly and pray, chick-chack, and run to my business, and all day long sit and work. But when I came home, what did I do? I opened the Gemara. I read a little bit of halachot. So your kids didn't see you throughout the day. They saw you at night, phone calls, checking emails. They didn't see that you were learning. My kids didn't see that all day long I'm doing business. They saw me at the night learning Torah. So the kid looks at you and he mimics you. Whatever you want your kid to be, don't think you can educate a kid or mold the kid. You can give example, the kid would look at you, and that's what's going to come out from the kid. Same thing with the story, going back to the story of the Gvir dinners, is that the daughters, why did they get these chatanim? Because that's what they cared about. They saw that the father, all he cares about is giving respect to the Torah, making the Torah greater, and so they went and looked for husbands that are great in the Torah. But nevertheless, what does that got to do with the fact that when a woman gives birth to a girl, then she becomes double impure, double the time? Is because whatever you want to give over to the child, you have to demand from yourself double. It's very important for me that my kids will grow up in the path of Torah. And my wife keeps telling me, are you sure we put them in the right schools and maybe they're not getting the right education and this, it's so confusing. I told her, school is a babysitting system. The education they get is in my home. And whatever I do, that's what they'll do. And it doesn't matter what school they go to. The school, they might get some ideas. But I told my wife, you want our daughters to be modest? You have to be modest. And double. Because they're going to look at you and then it's going to be filtered a little bit. I want my kids to be observant and I want them to have love to the Torah. I don't tell them, come to shul with me. Or tell them, you have to wake up in the morning and go to school. I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I go myself. When they wake up in the morning, where's my father? He's already up for 3 hours in the shul. They look for me. Where do they find me? They find me here. So you have to give example. Now when I want to give over something to my child, I have to demand from myself double. That's usually how, if you want success. So specifically here, that the mother wants to give over at some point. Who gives the daughter the rules of purity and impurity? The mother. The father doesn't talk to the daughter and tell her she's going to have a cycle. The mother does that. The mother teaches the daughter, listen, when you hit puberty, you're going to start getting a cycle, don't be alarmed. This is going to happen. Your body's going to start changing. At some point, you're going to have a husband. The mother gives over this information to the daughter. I mean, in normal cases. Nevertheless, I mean, I shouldn't say normal. In many cases. But in some cases, that's not the situation. But the point is that the mother is the one who's giving it over to the daughter. Then she has to lift herself double the quantity to bring herself to that level so she can give it over the right way to the daughter. And it's just a very interesting, there's not really a solid source. I just heard it from a very big rabbi, this story, and it synced, and that's what he connected to why specifically with a daughter, it's 80 days impurity, not 40 days. But again, we come to the same question that when we started, what's the connection between death and a woman who gives birth? Why both of them get this mysterious impurity? A person dies, a woman gives birth, they're both impure in a very weird way. And really, doesn't make sense. Here we're talking about death, here we're talking about life. How come with death and life, both get impure? And not only that, what's behind this impurity? Especially that later on, it changes. It's not that that you're stuck with it. It changes. Now, to explain it really more in a more deeper and profound way, there is a story that I read not too long ago, and that kind of will clear the air. After World War II, when the world was trying to refurbish itself, then Poland, in the mid-40s, they wanted to get all their citizens back because everybody fled Poland. So they came out with some announcement that anyone that can prove documents that they lived in Poland before the war can come back to Poland with no problems, no issues, no penalties, no nothing. So, of course, there were thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of Jews stuck in Russia. And they were stuck under an iron curtain. Nobody coming in, nobody coming out. And this was a big deal. Suddenly Poland is opening their doors. And diplomatically, if you can prove that you were a Polish citizen, you can cross the border into Poland. And then from there, go wherever you want. Needless to say, the Jewish underground started, okay, let's see what we're doing here. So there was a certain group of people that they started forging documents showing that people were, so to say, Polish, and people were running out of Russia. This we're talking about in the mid-40s. There was a certain Chassid, his name is Futerfas, very famous Chassid, and Mendel Futerfas, and he was running a what? Yeah, a secret operation that they were producing forged documents, and people will get these forged documents, show that they were Polish, cross the border and run away, go to Israel, go to America, go wherever they want, but run away from Russia. Needless to say, at some point the authorities started to close down, and he knew that they were already looking for him. He knew his time is coming up, and at some point, I don't remember if he went to his wife or his mother. He went to I think his wife or his mother. I don't remember the story exactly. And he told her, that's it. I have to stop. I have to give up because they're already looking for me. And she told him, oh, so I guess Mesirut Nefesh has also a limit. I get Mesirut Nefesh is putting your life on the line. I guess that also has a limit. He didn't take it so good. He was like, oh, this is the case? We're continuing. And of course, they continued for as much as they could. And then, of course, he got caught. And he got sentenced to harsh labor in Siberia. And of course, I think he ended up being there 8 years or 10 years. I don't remember how he got out of there. But nevertheless, who did they send to Siberia? People who were educated, musicians, and authors, because they didn't want educated people coming and going against the system. Anyone who had a little bit of a cop, a little bit of brain, will come and say to the people, what are you talking about? Are you believing this communism? It's nonsense. They're fooling you. They're controlling you. They didn't want people opening their mouth. So anybody who had a little bit of intelligence, let's send him to Siberia, lock them up. Nevertheless, so he came back with, he has stories from here till tomorrow, all these amazing stories and what he learned there. And so there's one story that really caught my attention. That one night he was sitting there, there's nothing to do. He's sitting in his cabin or whatever it is. And he's looking to the ceiling and he sees a cobweb. And, boredom, there's nothing else. So he's looking at the cobweb, looking, and he sees a spider in the corner and a little mosquito flying, and at some point the mosquito gets stuck in the cobweb. Now he's waiting to see what the spider's going to do. And the mosquito is trying to move, and every time it moves, it gets more tangled in the web, and the spider's just sitting there. And he's like, well, why isn't the spider eating him? Why isn't he doing anything? Only maybe after an hour that the mosquito already gave up. Mosquito fly, I don't remember what it was, doesn't matter. But in the beginning, the mosquito was fighting. Once the mosquito lost all of its energy and it got tangled real in the web, then the spider came slowly and ate it. And he says, even from something like this, look what you can learn. The Yetzer Hara comes to you when you're tired. It doesn't come to you when you have power to fight. The Yetzer Hara waits for a day that you're weak, then it comes and crushes you. And he says he learned that from a little spider and a little mosquito. Basically saying, in other words, a person who's happy doesn't fail. Person who has good energy, uplifted energy, very happy energy, doesn't fall for the Yetzer Hara. But when a person is a little bit down, a little bit sad, that's when the person starts failing. There is the Rabbi from Karlin gives a beautiful analogy. He says it's not a sin to be sad. There's no such a thing. But sadness brings you to do all the sins. There's another saying by the Rabbi from Kotsk that it says there's no mitzvah in the Torah to be happy. and there's no sin to be sad. But what joy can do, not any other mitzvah can do, and what sadness can do, not any other sin can do. So a person, when he's down, then that's when he's subject to fail in anything. And the Yetzer Hara is waiting for you to have a bad day, then he's going to come and, how they say, excuse my language, nail you. That's when the Yetzer Hara pushes, when you're low. And this is Tum'ah. This is the impurity that we're talking about. The moment that you're weak. The moment that you're weak and the Yetzer Hara can overpower over you. And he's waiting, the Yetzer Hara is waiting for you to have a bad day. And everybody has a moment in our life, many moments, that I lose power. And take one example out of many. A woman gives birth. She loses her power. She's the first couple days completely, there's no energy. Completely out of energy. Or a woman after her cycle. Or whatever it is. But we all have moments in our life that we lose power. And when I lose power, that's when I fall. And that's what the idea of impurity is. That I'm not fully charged and energized. So this is a very general idea to look of this concept of impurity. But there are a few explanations that I found also interesting to mention. One of them is by, it can be found in a book called Sefer HaChinuch. Sefer HaChinuch, there is a argument if some say it's a certain rabbi called Aaron Halevi, who wrote it in Barcelona, in Europe many years ago. Some say no, it's so to say somebody anonymously printed it from the teachings of the Maimonides, but nevertheless, in this book, Sefer HaChinuch, it says that Tum'ah, impurity, is confusion. Is when a person is in a state of confusion. And when you are in a state of confusion, you don't operate the right way. You wake up a person from a deep sleep, they confused for a couple seconds, they can't find their hands or legs. And when a person is in a state of confusion and he's not focused, he can't function well. So he says there that Tum'ah, impurity, is a confusion of the nefesh is confused. There's another book called the Kuzari that it says that the death has a common denominator for all these 8 sections of impurity. And he says Tum'ah, impurity, is a state of being deployed. Not deployed, like emptiness. How do you say? Depletion? When you completely when you're completely empty. You have a car, you have a gas tank. How do you call it when the gas tank is completely open, completely empty? Depleted. So he says, the Kuzari, that impurity is when you're completely depleted, that you lost you are completely empty. Now, it's dangerous. Why? Because the second that you are depleted, then anything else can come and enter into that void. That's why impurity is such a bad or dangerous situation, because anything else coming from the evil side will take possession of that empty place. And basically saying, in other words, this is also brought by the Orach Chaim, that impurity is the loss of ability to fight. When you have the ability to fight, then you're strong. Sometimes you lose your ability to fight, and this is also the state of impurity. So there's a few ideas about behind the concept of impurity. But to really understand where it's all coming from, all these 8 impurities that we talked about, their root is coming from the sin of the tree of knowledge. That's where it all rooted from. And in the what happened in the tree of knowledge, you know the story, Adam and Chava, they ate from the tree of knowledge by the snake. The snake convinced them, whatever was going on there. But nevertheless, this is the root of all sins and all the impurities in the world. That's where it all started. If you read the punishment, so to say, that they all got in the time, Adam got 10 punishments, Chava got 10 punishments, the snake got 10 punishments, and the land got 9 punishments. And all the types of impurity in the world are a manifestation from the sin of the tree of knowledge. That's where they're rooted. Now, we all have times in our life that this power, this impurity from the tree of knowledge wakes up within me. Because we're all connected, we're all rooted from Adam and Chava. So we all have times in our life that this power, this impurity that originated 5,778 years ago, it wakes up in me. And I'm now experiencing this impurity rooted from the tree of knowledge. Basically saying, in other words, that when a person is immersed in his own lusts, he's awakening within him this power of impurity coming from the tree of knowledge. Now, the idea here is that, we spoke about it many times, I don't want to too much sidetrack about it, but impurity is equal to pride. When a person is getting too full with ge'ava, selfness, and what we call it yeshut, some type of an existence, that's bringing this impurity into the world. Now, so if this is the case, why would a woman have to bring a korban, a sacrifice, after she gives birth? Okay, I understood it in general. So a very clear explanation why specifically when a woman has to bring a sacrifice after she gives birth, she doesn't bring it for herself. She brings the sacrifice for Chava, for the first sin, for the main sin. A woman gives birth, she does what's called the tikkun for all the worlds, for all the generations. And she has to bring a korban for the sin of the tree of knowledge. So, to summarize the idea of purity and impurity, and the common denominator of all the 8 of them, is it's a state when I am depleted, that my energy is running out, a moment that I'm weak. And the Yetzer Hara is going to look for that moment to overpower me. And that's why I need to be so aware of this impurity, because I'm subject now to an attack. And whatever impurity it is, when I'm in a state of weakness, that's when the evil force, the power of impurity, will come to attack me, to put me down. I need to know how to get myself to a point that I'm not impure. Now, of course, some of the times, it's not that we asked before, why would a person get punished? A woman has a cycle. Why is she punished to being impure? She's not being punished. It's rather she goes through a state of loss of potential of power, and the weakness, the emptiness is called impurity. And then in that time, she has to be aware, she has to be careful. It's not a punishment. It's just a situation that we have to go through. Why? Because it's tracked all the way back to the tree of knowledge. When Mashiach is going to come very soon, women aren't going to have their cycle anymore. So just for that, it's worth for the women to start praying for Mashiach to come. And women are babies are going to come like that. You know, if you remember, Sarah got, Chava got the curse, Be'etzev til dibanim. You're going to give birth in sorrow, in pains. So when Mashiach is going to come, giving birth is going to be a very easy thing. And women are going to have their cycle anymore, and many other things. That's just a curse from the time of the tree of knowledge. So this power of impurity that we are experiencing is not a punishment, rather it's rooted within us, and it awakens in certain times in our life. If it's a lady with her cycle, a woman giving birth, or all the other options that we gave before. And how is it connected to death? Because Adam and Chava, they brought death to the world. Before the tree of knowledge, they were supposed to live forever. And it says in the Torah, when you're going to eat from that tree, the day you're going to eat from that tree, you will die. You're going to bring death to the world. So we see the common denominator between all these eight parts that makes you impure. We can start analyzing one by one. There's not so much of a point to that. But for example, you know, the 8 animals that are, when you touch them, it becomes impure. It's the animals that specifically roam on the land. They go attached to the ground, like a mouse and that thing with all the legs and so on. Why? Because the land got cursed. Since the land got cursed, so the animals that are attached to the ground and also got cursed, they also carry some impurity on them. But nevertheless, we don't have to psychoanalyze every one of the 8. The idea to understand here is this impurity is coming from a very deep root in my soul, specifically connected and rooted to the tree of knowledge. And practically saying, because we like taking things and applying them into my life, is to understand the severity of the impurity. That the severity is that I'm subject to an attack now by the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara is going to wait for me to be down. Which means that when a person is going through a period of impurity, there's a lot of rules by the Torah, what I should do or not do. So when a woman, while she has her cycle, she can touch her husband, she can be with her husband, when you follow that, when you follow all these rules, then you're not giving power to the other side to attack. You're not giving power to the other side to overpower. Rather, you're keeping the impurity segregated. Chas v'shalom, when a person doesn't follow the rules, then they're applying the opportunity for the impurity to be stronger and stronger. Needless to say that I have to find in my life anything that will cause me to fall into this impurity and to not let this happen. And one of the major things that are connected to us is the idea of sadness. It's very easy to fall into sadness. The Yetzer Hara is going to manipulate the situation just for you to fall into sadness. And even if something is the best thing that ever happened to you, then the Yetzer Hara is going to manipulate to tell you, no, it's a disaster. Really, that you should say to yourself, what is the best thing that ever happened to me? So, and it can be given an example in so many ways. Person can get fired, and he's going to, now the Yetzer Hara is going to tell him this is the worst thing that ever happened to you. But a month later, they find a 10 times better job. So it's actually a good thing that happened to them. The Yetzer Hara always likes to take advantage of situations and present it to you in a very bad way. So you finish a relationship in a way that you didn't expect, and the Yetzer Hara is going to come like this and see, it's a disaster. The Yetzer Hara will always manipulate it in such a way to show you the negative part of it. Why? Just to bring you to sadness. So practically saying, what we want to take from this entire teaching is the bottom line is the importance of constantly keeping myself in a good spirit and happy. Because when I'm sad, then I'm giving all my power away to the Yetzer Hara to take advantage. And I lose all control of my environment and my surrounding. And that's really the point of the Yetzer Hara, is to get me sad. And like I said before, there's not a sin to be sad. But sadness brings you to do all the sins. You don't have energy, you don't want to do anything, you don't have the right attitude, you don't want to wake up, you don't want to get out of bed, you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that, you just want to dwell in your own sadness. And the remedy is only is to uproot the sadness and just do everything b'simcha, to do everything in joy. So practically saying, when we want to apply that, this impurity, I want to translate it in my life to happiness and sadness. We don't now have a Beit HaMikdash, so I'm not so particular if I'm pure or not pure, because I don't have to come to Beit HaMikdash at this point. Very soon Mashiach is going to come, right away they slaughter a red heifer, right away they make us pure, then I'm not going to have this problem. Right now, how it's applying to my life is take the words purity and impurity and switch them to sadness and happiness. When I'm impure, when I'm sad, it's like being impure. When I'm happy, it's I'm pure. So my entire agenda is to find out how am I not falling to the trap of this spider that pulls me into atzvut, into sadness. And how am I applying everything in my life to be happy, to be thankful, to be appreciative, to be happy with everything that I have. And the more that I build this level of happiness in my life, then I don't fall into sadness. It's very easy to look at the half-empty cup, at the empty part of the cup. But when you look at the full part of the cup, and you say, okay, maybe I don't have this and that, but look how much I do have. Look how much I might not have that thing right in my life, but I have this and that. The point is to constantly bring myself to a state of happiness and not to bring myself to a state of sadness. And this is what I want to learn from that, from the whole idea behind purity and impurity, is that since purity and impurity is not such a thing that is easy to grasp in my mind, same thing here, that I have two concepts that they're not really a sin or a mitzvah to be sad or happy, but it's controlling my entire life. And needless to say that I have to do whatever I can to constantly keep myself in a level that the inside, the real happiness is coming from within inside. Then of course the real happiness that's come from inside is only when my soul is happy. If my soul is not happy, then I will not be happy. I can have millions of dollars and everything that I wish for, but if my soul is not happy, I will never be happy.
Isn't the definition of soul? The definition of soul is happiness.
Yes, but
So,
it's but
it's the soul being revealed. Not
you can explain it in that way.
Or unhappy. It's
But what I mean, if you now not going to eat for a whole day, then the first hour will be fine. 3 hours later, you'll get a dry mouth. 5 hours later, you get a headache. 10 hours later, you get a stomach ache, and so forth. Why? Because you put your body on a diet, and you're fasting, and your body is reacting. Put now your soul on a diet. Don't give your soul Torah and mitzvot. So after a day or two, it will be uncomfortable. After a year or 10 years, the soul will start bothering you. Hey, I need some air here. So when you put your soul on a spiritual diet, you don't feed your soul with Torah and mitzvot, the soul gets, my words, is unhappy. So if my soul is unhappy, then my body will become unhappy. Either it will affect me with a physical problem, it will affect me with an emotional problem, it will affect me with a mental problem. But my analogy, maybe I'm using the wrong words, is that if the soul is happy, meaning that it's being nourished by Torah and mitzvot, it's satisfied, you're going to be the most happiest person in the world. Even if you owe millions of dollars, whatever you're looking at a 50-year sentence in jail, you're still going to be happy. Of course, I'm a little bit exaggerating, but not too long ago, there's one guy, maybe you know him, he goes in the streets here, he's always smiling and he's happy. And one time I talked to him and I asked him, as in the conversation, so we're talking, and he was telling me in the conversation that he has about 100,000 shekel debt to the banks. And I told him, so how are you so happy? He's like, well, it's not 200,000. So he was happy that it's not 200,000. He didn't care about that it's 100,000. Just happy that it's not worse. But nevertheless, the real happiness comes from my soul. It's not coming from anything physical. And I just need to know how to elevate the level of happiness in my life. If I'm deep down inside sad, it's not because my bank account is empty. It's not because my clothes are a little bit run down and they're not new, or that I didn't buy now the brand new iPhone 17 or whatever the number it's holding on. It's because inside something is bothering me. And that's why I said the soul, of course soul represents happiness, but it means the soul is missing something. The soul is unhappy, it's not nourished, it doesn't get enough Torah, it doesn't get enough prayer, it doesn't get kosher food, it doesn't get what the soul needs. So yeah, it's depleted. The soul is depleted. So our goal is to charge the soul with a lot of Torah, with a lot of mitzvot, with good behavior, with charitable acts, with the right way of thinking, with making my thoughts holy, my mouth holy. Then I'm nourishing my soul. My soul is happy. I will be happy. And together when we are applying my life in happiness, then I'm much more excited to do mitzvot, much more excited to help other people, much less angry and judgmental and all these bad character traits. And needless to say that when we apply that is the only thing that will really hasten the coming of the redemption, where we can actually see with our own eyes the building of Bet HaMikdash that will cause us to lose this impurity once and for all. And this, of course, can be done with our hard efforts in the time of exile. Brother Shem should have a beautiful, restful week, and a week of happiness and purity.